Hi, I'm Maya. Welcome back to this week's episode of ONSC Live. Did you get the answer to this week's riddle? The answer is salamanders! You might be thinking that salamander's kind of like a lizard, but actually salamanders are amphibians, so they're more related to frogs. Lizards are reptiles, so they're more related to snakes, like Princess here. So, Princess, what makes a reptile and an amphibian an amphibian? I don't know. Oh, well, let's find out.
Well, firstly, amphibians don't have scales. Instead, they have smooth, moist, thin skin. It's so thin that they can actually take in oxygen through it, kind of like another way of breathing. They also undergo a process called metamorphosis, meaning that they undergo a change during their life. For example, you probably already know that the baby tadpoles live in the water. After metamorphosis, the adult frogs will look very different, and they can live on land as well. All amphibians have poison glands in their skin. Poison is something that you have to eat or rub on your body in order for you to have a reaction. So, think of a poisoned dart frog. If you were to eat it, probably wouldn't feel too good. Now, most in Arkansas aren't going to hurt you, but it's probably not a good idea to go around eating frogs, right? Reptiles have scales and dry skin. They do not undergo metamorphosis, so a baby snake or lizard is just going to look like a tiny version of the grown-up usually. A few snakes are venomous. Now, venom is something that has to be injected into your body, like through a bee sting or a spider bite or a snake bite.
Today, we're going to be looking around ONSC for a very special kind of amphibian, salamanders. There are a lot of species of salamanders here, but most of them can be grouped into two families. Now, when I say family, I don't mean like your brother or your sister or your uncle. I mean the word family how scientists use the word, which is a grouping of similar species.
We'll be talking about salamanders in the family Plethodontidae and salamanders in the family Ambystomatidae. Those are pretty big words, I know, so let's just start with the first family, family Plethodontidae, or the lungless salamander family. That's right, salamanders in this group don't have lungs. They have to do all their breathing across their skin. Pretty crazy, right? Plethodontid salamanders also have this little line going from their nose to the lip. This is called a nasolabial groove. It's pretty much a super sniffer. Salamanders in this family are so sensitive to the chemicals in the soil around them that they can even tell what kind of salamander's been walking through their habitat, whether it's a friend or someone that they've never met before. Plethodontid salamanders that you might find at ONSC include the Ozark zigzag salamander, slimy salamanders, dark-sided salamanders, gray-belly or Oklahoma salamanders, and cave salamanders. Plethodontids can be found in many different kinds of habitats. For example, Ozark zigzags, they like to live under rocks and logs, so flip some over and see if you can find any next time you're walking through the woods. Other species, like this Oklahoma salamander, or those dark-sided salamanders, prefer to live near streams. The other group of salamanders that we're going to talk about are in the family Ambystomatidae, or the mole salamander family. Salamanders in this group are generally larger in size. They have lungs, and if you look at their faces, they don't have that nasolabial groove or those super sniffers that the plethodontid salamanders have.
So you might be wondering why ambystomatid salamanders are also called mole salamanders. That's a good question. That's because they spend most of their time in the woods underground, and you can't even see them. If you've seen one, you're pretty lucky. But certain times of year, they pop out of the ground, and they all migrate to ponds like this to breed and lay their eggs. We'll have to come back at night and see if we can find any. Let's go!
This spotted salamander has been waiting underground all year long for the first spring rains. It's migrating to the pond where it will breed and lay its eggs. After the eggs hatch, they'll be baby salamanders or larvae. And then they'll metamorphose and come back onto land. Some ambistomatid species that you could find at ONSC include the smallmouth salamander, the yellow-spotted salamander, the marbled salamander, and the ringed salamander.
We've seen so many salamanders today. We've seen salamanders in the family Plethodontidae, or the lungless salamanders, and we've seen salamanders in the family Ambistomatidae, or the mole salamanders. But before you start thinking that there are only 2 salamander families out there, you should look into some others, because there are way more. Here at ONSC, we also have the central newt, which is in the family Salamandridae, and in other parts of the Ozarks, you can find sirens, or amphiumas, or even hellbenders, which are really big and awesome. So you should definitely look all those up. Salamanders are really great, but not just because they're adorable. Salamanders are also bioindicators, which means that they can give you a clue about the health of the ecosystem in which they're living in. So if you find a salamander in your backyard, it can tell you that the water is probably pretty clean. So we all have to do our part to make sure that their habitats stay pollution-free. And if you go out and look for salamanders in your backyard, make sure that if you're flipping over rocks or logs, you're putting them back where you found them, because that's something's home. Until next time, happy salamander hunting!